everybody? It's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Dara O'Connor.
Yo, what's going on? It's Leon Slater, and you are listening to Dara O'Connor on the Wrestling Rewind. You get me?
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello folks, it is Phoenix 92.5 FM, it is 8 o'clock, my name is Dara O'Connor, that means you're listening to The Wrestling Rewind, brought to you by Nerd to Know Media. This is our 200th show, folks. Crazy to think, an absolute pleasure that we've made a 200 shows so far for everyone who listens week after week. We really do appreciate it, but we wanted to mark this special occasion, and I can't think of a better way to do it than with an interview. Thank you to the folks over in TNA for allowing us time to speak to the youngest X-Division champion in history, Leon Slater. He joins us in just a few minutes. We talk about his run so far, his inspiration, and his plans going forward. But not only that, we also talk about some TNA history. Look, you've been listening to the show. You know I love TNA. You know we like to go back and have a look at some of the major moments that made wrestling companies. And the X-Division is that for TNA in a very real way. He has a wealth of knowledge on the X-Division, his favourite matches from it. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time talking with Leon. It was great to kind of go back and talk some X-Division with the current X-Division champion. That was pretty cool. So folks, thank you so much for checking us out for these 200 episodes. And I really hope you enjoy this interview with the youngest X-Division champion in TNA history, Mr. Leon Slater.
Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So look, you're one of the biggest rising stars in TNA at the moment. Congratulations on your first X-Division win.
Thank you.
Oh man, look, it was a great match. It really was. But I need to ask you, what's it like for you personally to hold a title with such a strong lineage?
It's super cool for me personally, man. Especially in I think I mentioned it. Excuse me. A little bit before, but I grew up as a TNA kid, man. I'm sure you can relate to the point where if you didn't have Sky Sports or the channels that you had to pay for, you couldn't watch Raw and SmackDown and the WWE pay-per-views, you know what I'm saying? So if you didn't have access to those channels and those inputs, then you were a TNA kid because TNA was free. During the time that I came up, I remember TNA being super hot on YouTube, kind of way before anyone else was, you know what I mean? So I'd be on YouTube all day. I'd be, trying to record and save all the TV episodes. So growing up as a TNA kid, and growing up to be the X-Division champion, is something I definitely don't take lightly, man. It's an honor, it really is.
Well, look, speaking of which, I was right there with you. TNA for me has always been, where my heart's been for since the beginning, and in the UK, same with Ireland. It was there. It was always accessible. So that's really good to hear, man. So look, as I said, you're one of the youngest stars on the roster. You're carrying one of the most prestigious titles. But what's it like to be named, on more than one occasion, along with some of the legends like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels?
It's wild, man. And I still don't think it's really set in for me, it's such a surreal thing for a kid from Bradford to be, now in the same list of names like legends like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and people that you've just mentioned, right? And not only that, but to be endorsed by AJ at Summerversary as well, who's obviously the first X-Division champion and arguably the greatest wrestler that TNA has ever produced, is something that's monumental for me, right? And my whole thing in TNA has been, I want to live forever. I want to create these moments, make these matches that people are going to remember long past when I'm retired, long past when I'm gone and on to another place, right? And that moment with AJ at Summerversary, for me, I believe is something that's going to live forever, you know what I mean? So to be held in the same regard, or at least trying to be held in the same regard as these legends, and kind of getting that pat on the back and almost that torch passed down a little bit, it's definitely something I don't take lightly.
Well, speaking of which, your rise in TNA has been incredibly impressive. You've been on my radar for some time, so it's great to see you get that.
Thank you, man.
Endorsement from AJ. But what was the moment that you consider was the turning point, and not only for yourself as a wrestler, but also a real contender in the X-Division?
That's a real good question, man. I think there's arguably a couple of points where you could kind of say it turned around. Maybe the earliest point though was my match against Speedball Mike Bailey last October, I think it was. I think that was my first or second. I think it was my first. It was my first shot at the X-Division Championship. And we tore the house down, man. You know what I mean? Like we had a killer match, and I think up until that point, I'd been like, yeah, the young kid on the roster, like he's athletic, he can do some cool stuff, and yeah, he might be good one day. Um, and then at least from where I've kind of experienced it and seen it after that speedball match, people started to take me a little bit more seriously and like, oh wow, like he can actually hang with the best, you know what I mean? And then obviously like as we've progressed at the beginning of this year, kind of the pairing with Matt and Jeff has been incredible in helping me along this journey, which is again like another big test because it's super easy to be kind of swallowed up by that hardy buzz, you know what I mean? I feel like it would have been super almost expected of me to go in and be that third Hardy member and just be thought of as that, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it's just the person that Matt and Jeff's teaming with for the day. But I feel like I've kind of carved my own lane, and I am. I've heard Matt and Jeff say it, I've heard some other people say it, but I am kind of an honorary Hardy boy right now, which is super cool. So I think those 2 points were definitely like real big momentum builders for me. And then obviously like past that point, we moved on to the Orlando set of tapings where we had that live show, and I had the no DQ match against JDC. I think that was another big stepping stone. Then we moved on to Sacrifice, being the youngest person to ever main event a TNA special. That's another step. And then, you know, we just been building a bit. And how can I forget Rebellion, right? The crazy Ultimate X stunt.
I really feel that when Leon, that's when you got on my radar. Everybody was sending me that. I was like, I know I was watching, so absolutely crazy.
It's insane, right? But like, I think to go back to your original question, that first kind of big step up for me was that match against Speedball in October.
Phenomenal. Well, look, for fans in the UK and Ireland who haven't seen your journey yet, there's a perfect way to catch up, right? And even in the US, TNA Plus, it's offers every month for UK and Irish fans. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so TNA Plus, like honestly, bro, like I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, and I can say that TNA Plus is one of, if not the best, like wrestling streaming app out there. Like not only do you have the whole 23 years I think we're at right now, like the whole 23-year lineage and library of TNA, but you get every single episode of Impact and every single special pay-per-view included with that. And if you're a fan in the UK or Ireland, the boy has got you a special code. If you use code LEONYIC when signing up to TNA Plus, you can get a free month, which is obviously incredible.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So what were some of the challenges that you had kind of orientating yourself towards the X-Division? What made you want to go for that title?
So I think as someone that's always been smaller, and not in the sense of height, I've always been pretty lucky that I've always been like a pretty lanky, tall dude, you know what I'm saying? But as someone that's grown up on the little bit of the slimmer, skinnier side, you know what I mean? I've always found myself kind of leaning towards the X-Division style. And like, obviously, when I started training, which was way too young at 9 years old, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of had to rely on the X-Division style, right? As I started training, because I couldn't give people power moves. I was like a little bit too young to really understand the nitty gritties of technique and technical wrestling. But like I said, like I've always been blessed to be pretty tall, pretty athletic. So high flying came pretty easy, you know what I mean? So I really do feel like my journey to the X-Division has not only been since I've been in TNA, but really since I started training, you know, and now I'm in the position where it doesn't necessarily have to be the typical X division, right? Like I can craft this division and make it into whatever I want or whatever my vision for it is, which I feel like a lot of people before me have done. And that's why the X division has been so special. And again, like I'm in this super, super good position right now where I kind of have that freedom to do that, you know? So I'm really excited.
Well, that's it. You know, X-Division has always meant no limits. So, you know,
exactly.
I think that's the best philosophy. But look, let me just take you back to the past a bit. As the champion, are there any guys past or present that you'd like to get in the ring with and defend against?
Absolutely, man. And like 2025 has been a wild year, like for professional wrestling, right? Especially on our side over at TNA with the NXT partnership and everything. So like, not only is there guys like a Zachary Wentz, a Myron Reed, a Jason Hotch, a Casey Navarro when he's back from injury. On our roster that I'd love to kind of tangle it up with for the X Division belt, there's people over on NXT. There's Javon Evans, there's Ricky Saints, there's Ethan Page, there's Obafemi, there's Trick Williams, who obviously holds our world title right now. And then if we're talking past and present, a couple of me from the past is my top three right now is Frankie Kazarian as someone that's been a real mentor figure for me since I've been in TNA. Like my first couple of matches in TNA were with Frankie Kazarian. Obviously, we squared off at the start of this year as well. So to kind of bring that full circle for the X Division belt with the X Division OG would be obviously huge. And like on the topic of X Division OGs, I think someone that made the X Division super special and super different back in the day was Amazing Red. So Amazing Red is another one that'd be on my list to, you know, get a defense on a TNA show. And I think the obvious answer that everyone's expecting is the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, the first ever X Division champion versus the youngest. I feel like there's a little something there, you know what I'm saying? So we'll see.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's a great list. Any of those matches would be absolute bangers. But look, I have to ask you a bit of a selfish question. As a TNA fan yourself, what matches stick out to you from the past that fans can check out now on TNA Plus? What are the ones where you're like, this is TNA?
So obviously the obvious ones, right? There's the Unbreakable Triple Threat, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels. That's obvious.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best matches of all time, for sure.
Exactly. It was TNA's, I think, only or one of very few like 5-star matches for a while, you know? So obviously that one is super special that you can go back and watch. But as a couple of more niche picks, like honestly, I remember when I first came into TNA, it was Sacrifice 2024. It was the Sacrifice of last year. And Nick Nemeth versus Steve Macklin was incredible, man. Incredible. I still go back and watch that match every couple of months, you know? So, like, I feel like since we've been on this new wave of momentum, people are not taking as much notice as they should, I'll be honest, of the matches we're putting out and what we're doing in TNA. So if you go back and watch a lot of the pay-per-view stuff from the past kind of year or two, you know what I mean? The quality is just getting better and better, man. And, you know, TNA Plus allows you to go back and search through all of that.
Well, that's it. And going back to the UK fans as well, like obviously being from the UK and Ireland, like we have some representation, but what's it like for yourself with family back home to see TNA grow from strength to strength? Because every time they come to the UK, it's always a great time. But, you know, we have such a strong fan base here as it is, you know?
Absolutely, man. And I think like that representation you talk about is super important. And it's something I take a great lot of pride in, like not only being from the UK, but being from Bradford, because nobody from where I'm from has done what I've done before, you know? Well, I'm graduating, so I'm trying to, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But like, again, like you said, we have representation. I'm not the only person doing it from the UK. Obviously, we've got Joe Hendry flying the flag. He flew the flag on WrestleMania, you know what I mean? Which is absolutely huge. We've got Harley Hudson. We've got Danny Luna from the UK as well. We've got Myla Grace, who's the first ever Irish signing in TNA history. So we've started with a few of us, but the UK representation is getting stronger and stronger as we start to go on.
Well, hopefully it keeps going strength to strength. It's great to see people like yourself out there absolutely killing it, and the names that you mentioned, obviously. But look, I have two more questions and then I'll let you go. So the next one is, look, yes, sir. When fans look back at your first X Division run, what do you hope they remember most about it?
That's a real good question, man. I think with the X Division, it's super easy to remember the matches, right? Which is kind of what the X Division has been built on. And I feel like I know I can deliver on that, because obviously like my whole independent run, my whole run in TNA has been put Leon out there and he can have a good match, right? So my thing with this X Division run is I kind of want to take it in a little bit of a more unique path and create some cool moments, you know, because again, like I said, there's a bunch of cool X Division matches you can name from past and present, right, that are legendary. But there's not as many X Division moments, you know what I mean? So I kind of want to blend the two together and really make a legacy of making these special moments like we did at Slammiversary, like setting the breaking the record for being the youngest ever, having AJ Styles first time in TNA in 10 plus years be because of the X-Division Champion and the X-Division Championship. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really just trying to create more moments, like I said kind of earlier on, that are going to live forever, you know?
And speaking of moments that are living forever, for anyone that's listened to this show now, for anyone who hasn't jumped on the TNA Plus chain, why should they use your code? And why should you check it out with you as the forefront of the current X-Division?
Well, number one, you should use the code because it's free. So I've never met anyone that doesn't like free stuff. I've never met anyone that doesn't like free stuff. And not only is it just stuff, like I said earlier, it's one of the best, if not the best, pro wrestling streaming platform out there today. You know what I'm saying? And especially with the talent we've got right now, not even speaking for myself, because of course I can promise I'm always going to deliver, you know what I'm saying? But the whole roster we've got at TNA right now is absolutely killing it. And to have the chance to have access to that for free, you'd be honestly a fool to be missing out on what's going on in TNA right now.
Well, sir, thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. And I wish you the best in your continued run.
Yes, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.